300 ships bore down on a handful of survivors. The great admiral who should have saved them lay dead on the deck, and the one girl who could turn the tide had given up on living. To win the most famous battle in history without its hero, Kim Dokja would not lift a sword. He would reach into a broken teenager's guilt and hand her a reason to stand back up. Jai-hai, someone screamed. She was down on the blood-slicked deck, and the enemy armada was closing in. Jai-hai, are you alright? Uff. The naval warfare god, the spirit of the great admiral himself, watched over her, and the system spoke his sorrow. The constellation, naval warfare god, pities Jai-hai Lee. But Jai-hai did not want to be pitied. I can't, she gasped, tears streaming. I won't take care of it, I can't. And Kim Dokja understood exactly why, because he had read her story, and it was the loneliest kind of pain. This girl was not merely a soldier with a legendary constellation. She was, in her own way, a descendant of that legend, tied by blood and history to the admiral who watched over her, and she believed with all her heart that she did not deserve to live. Get up, Jai-hai, Dokja said. Now. She's not talking to me right now, the girl wept, meaning her own constellation, the god she felt she had failed. Can't you hold it for just a little longer, Dokja pressed. Can't I? What? You have no idea, mister. And here Kim Dokja said the thing that only he could say, the reader who knew everything. No, I do, he told her quietly. I actually do know. I know you're not like this because you're seasick. The seasickness was an excuse. The truth was survivor's guilt, the classmates she had been forced to kill in her very first scenario just to stay alive, the belief that a murderer had no right to keep breathing. How did you, she whispered, staring at him. How could you possibly know that? It's not just that, Dokja admitted. I know practically everything about you. I also know the real reason the naval warfare god chose you. He picked you when you hated the sea, and don't really care for the greater good. Because Jai-hai Lee was a descendant of Admiral Lee's comrade in arms, a man named Iaki Lee. Along with the great Admiral Sun Sin Lee, this Iaki Lee had led the Joseon Navy to victory in the legendary battles of Danghengpo and Hansondo. He was one of the few men who had defended the great admiral when the hero was framed for treason and abandoned by his own king. It was an honorable thing to do, and so the naval warfare god had chosen to make his old friend's descendant his incarnation. The god was not just fighting a war. He was keeping faith with a comrade across 400 years. His old friend's descendant turning into a demon after killing her friends, Dokja thought, watching the girl crumble. I'm sure he couldn't bear to watch. And then the enemy struck again. The bounty had followed them even here, into the movie. A bounty scenario. Those who seek death shall live, those who seek life shall die. The great admiral's stigma flared, but Jai-hai would not rise, and the ghost of an old war hero grieved as his incarnation begged to be allowed to die. This is disgusting, she sobbed. I don't deserve to live. I'm no different from Jai-hai who killed her friends to survive. Yes, you are, Kim Dokja said. And he gave her the truth that had carried him through his own apocalypse, the philosophy that separated the living from the dead in this cruel world. What matters is that you survive, he told her. The right to live isn't something you're given. You must earn it while you're alive. It doesn't matter whether you atone for your past, or keep living a despicable life. Living was not a reward for the innocent. It was a choice the guilty made every single morning, to get up and be worth the breath they stole. "What do you really want here?" he demanded. "To survive, or do you want to die?" "I don't," she choked. "I don't want to die." The words tore out of her like something being born. "You now have an excellent understanding of Yahello," the system noted, as level 2 of Omniscient. Reader's viewpoint activated between them. And the god who had waited 4 centuries finally saw his comrade's blood rise. The constellation, naval warfare god, reacts to Yahello's show of will. Because that was the whole point. Constellations do as they please. They don't always help their incarnations when they ask for help, and many of them don't even bat an eye when their incarnations die. But no constellation ever misses the chance to help their incarnation when their story is involved. And Yahello's story, the story of a coward who chose to be brave, was exactly the kind of tale a war god lived for. Clang! She caught the falling blade. She rose to her feet on the pitching deck, tears still on her face, and the sea itself seemed to answer her. Yahello has acquired a new stigma. Yahello's stigma, Ghost Fleet, has been activated. Whoosh! Power exploded off the teenage girl, and out on the black water something impossible began to stir. "I've only ended up helping Junghyuk out in the end," Dokja thought with a wry smile, "but I still got something out of it." He had not just saved a girl. He had unlocked one of the most powerful naval abilities in the entire story. 12 ships left to fight with. The famous, impossible number. Splash! Splash! Out of the depths they rose, spectral warships wreathed in ghostly light, the drowned fleet of a 400-year-old victory answering the call of the admiral's blood. Where there had been only a handful of survivors on a single deck, now a phantom armada surged across the water, prows cutting through the waves, the great character for commander blazing on their sails. This was the Battle of Myeongyang reborn, 12 against 300, and the girl who had wanted to die stood at the head of the ghost fleet with the naval warfare god roaring at her back. "I would happily die where I stand," Yahello said, her voice steady now, "if I could only have my vengeance." The rain lashed down, the enemy armada loomed, and the survivors braced on the deck. The ghost fleet closed the distance. And then the swordswoman gave the order that had shattered an empire 400 years ago. Fire! Pow! Pow! The spectral cannons roared as one, a wall of fire and thunder tearing across the water, and the enemy ships began to break apart in gouts of flame. The city skyline behind them lit up orange as the barrage found its mark, hundreds of ships thrown into chaos by 12 ghosts and one girl who had finally decided she wanted to live. The impossible victory was unfolding exactly as history remembered it, achieved not by the dead admiral, but by the descendant of his faithful friend. The cinema master, who cared only for action, could not have asked for a better finale. A doomed battle, a fallen hero, a broken soldier rising to command a fleet of ghosts and win the unwinnable. Spark! Spark! The screening began to dissolve around them, the ancient sea giving way to the familiar walls of the cinema dungeon, the floor cleared, the reward earned. Pluck! Wish! The great admiral's power settled, and Yahello stood among her friends again, exhausted, hollow-eyed, but alive, and for the first time not ashamed of it. Kim Dokja had climbed 6 floors of living cinema, and on the hardest one he had won not with a blade but with the truth. He had taken a girl drowning in guilt and shown her that survival itself could be an act of courage. Somewhere above, on the 8th floor, the cinema master still waited, and beyond it lay whatever was left of Yu Junghyuk, the regressor who had walked into this dungeon ready to die. But the reader had gained a ghost fleet, saved a soul, and proven once again that the most powerful thing in the star stream was a story worth telling. The loneliest reader in the world turned toward the next floor, his ragtag cast of heroes at his side. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja had climbed 7 floors of living cinema to rescue the strongest man in the world. But when he finally found Yu Junghyuk on the 8th floor, the regressor was standing, calm, and unharmed. That was the problem. Because the man who greeted him with cold eyes was not Yu Junghyuk at all. He was the final boss of the dungeon, wearing the hero's face like a mask. First, the battle had to end. The girl who does not cry took command of the battlefield, and the ghost fleet finished its work. Crash. Bang. Bang. The spectral cannons roared until the last remaining enemy ship sank beneath the waves. The impossible victory was complete, 12 ghost ships against 300, won by a teenage girl instead of a dead admiral. The cinema master is content with the new ending. You have reached the 4th ending credit. Cast: Dokja Kim, Huiwon Jong, Jae-hai Lee, Giliang Lee. You have each received 500 coins for your performance. It took no more than an hour to turn a massacre into a legend. You did good, Dokja told Jae-hai as the sea dissolved. Ugh, I feel sick again, she groaned, and he almost laughed. The powerful stigma she'd earned, the ghost fleet, was a treasure she would not have obtained until much later in the original story. And the bounty scenario paid out too. The bounty scenario has been cleared. You have received the naval warfare god stigma as a reward. You have received the stigma, Sword Song. Sword Song, Dokja marveled. Jae-hai won't obtain this stigma until much later in the story. It's probably much more useful to me than the ghost fleet is. The stigma of the great admiral, overpowered much. She's too good to leave with Junghyuk, he thought. He gave me such a precious stigma. Maybe I could stand more of a chance because of this. The god of naval warfare expressed his gratitude, and Kim Dokja walked away richer, stronger, and 1 floor closer to his goal. It looks like we're going back to the theater, he said. And there, at last, they reached the 8th floor. Kim Dokja turned to his exhausted companions. You can rest here for a while, he told them. We'll go rescue Junghyuk. But, someone protested. Just do as I say. Because he knew what waited on this floor, and he did not want them to see it until he understood it himself. He had used the ampoules and the coins he'd saved to sufficiently raise his stats, stamina, strength, agility, mana, all pushed to 20. He had prepared as much as a man could. And then he stepped through, into a place the system named the Sky Garden, and found the strongest man in the world waiting for him. Dokja, isn't that the guy, Junghyuk? Someone whispered. He looks just fine. And that was exactly what set off every alarm in Kim Dokja's head. Because Yu Junghyuk, who had gone into this dungeon 11 hours ago and nearly died, who should have been battered and bleeding, stood tall and unhurt in the center of the garden. He looks just fine, the reader thought, and that's the problem. To test it, Kim Dokja did the boldest, dumbest thing imaginable. He walked up to the strongest man alive and smacked him across the face. Hey, Junghyuk, he said. Smack. Gosh, that felt so good, he thought, shaking out his hand. I'd love to hit him some more, considering the trouble I went through thinking he was in danger. Ouch. But something's not right, he realized. The regressor did not react. No cold glare, no drawn sword, no threat to kill him. Nothing. Something's not right. Jung-hikyu, Dokja said, circling the silent figure. And then he saw it, and his blood ran cold. Maybe he's angry that you hit him all of a sudden, a companion offered. But Kim Dokja knew better. Is this? He thought, staring into the hero's empty eyes. Could it be? Because he remembered the darkest fact in the whole story. Jung-hikyu died in a cinema dungeon on his 8th regression. It wasn't because he was weak. It was because he was unlucky. The strongest man in the world had fallen here once before, not to any monster, but to the master of this very place. And the truth landed like a hammer. He must be the final boss of the cinema dungeon. The cinema master revealed himself at last, an old man in a fine coat, tipping his hat with a cruel smile. Simulation, the cinema master has revealed himself. Damn it, Dokja thought, it's already happened. Because the boss of the cinema dungeon was the polar opposite of Jung-hikyu. Right now, he is but an empty shell, the cinema master's puppet. Simulation, the cinema master has control over Jung-hikyu. The master of living movies had defeated the regressor and seized his body, and now the greatest weapon in the world stood ready to be turned against the very man who had come to save him. Calm down, Jung-hikyu, Dokja tried, hands raised. Why don't we talk? Damn it, this is the worst-case scenario. Right now, there is no character who can stop him. Because that was the horror of it, the strongest fighter alive, puppet by an enemy, and no one on their side strong enough to match him. What? The puppet answered, and moved. Jung-hikyu has activated the skill, Force Palm. Whoosh! Crash! The blow tore across the garden, and Kim Dokja was hurled backward, his new armor cracking. Reinforced armor suit has been damaged. Your defense stat has been partially decreased. Cough, ugh. Dokja. His companions came running despite his orders, and now they were all in the path of a god-tier weapon with no soul behind its eyes. Hui-Won moved first. Jung-hee-won has activated the skill, Demon Slaying. Why you? She snarled, her eyes flaring red, and threw herself at the puppet. Dash. Slide. But it was hopeless, and Dokja knew it. No, he shouted, Hui-Won isn't strong enough to face Jung-hikyu yet. She was brave, she was a judge of evil, but she was still climbing, and the man before her was the ceiling of the entire story. Smack. He swatted her aside, and she skidded across the floor. This isn't going to be easy, Dokja panted, dragging himself up. Pant. The puppet escalated. Jung-hikyu has activated the skill, 100-step fist, level 2. The air itself became a weapon, 100 phantom blows raining out in every direction. Aha, Jai-hai cried, her blade a blur as she tried to parry the unparryable. Crash. Clang. Clang. The whole sky garden rang like a struck bell as the survivors were battered from every side, and even Jai-hai Lee, with her legendary constellation and her brand new stigmas, could barely hold. Hui-Won, someone screamed as she went down. Jai-hai, watch out. It was a slaughter waiting to happen, for exhausted survivors against the puppet body of the man history would remember as the strongest who ever lived. But Kim Dokja had not come this far to lose him. He drew on everything, the stats he'd bought, the stigmas he'd borrowed, the unbreakable blade at his hip, and he looked for the one thing the cinema master could not take, the man still buried inside the puppet. Because a shell was still shaped like Yu Junghyuk. And somewhere under the master's control, in the deepest part of a mind that had survived 3 lifetimes of horror, the real regressor might still be listening. The reader had reached people that way before. He had cracked the 4th wall of a demon and the guilt of a swordswoman. Now he would try to reach the loneliest hero of them all, the man who had walked into this dungeon ready to die, and drag him back to himself. The fight raged on, brutal and lopsided, the cinema master's puppet carving through them while the old man watched from his seat like a director enjoying his own film. And then, through the chaos, a small, uncertain voice cut across the garden. Jai-hai, staggered and bleeding, looked up at the man wearing her savior's face, the master who had pulled her from her worst night, and spoke the word that held all her hope and all her fear at once. Master. The strongest man in the world stood silent, an empty shell in a garden in the sky, his body a weapon in an enemy's hand and his soul locked somewhere deep inside. Kim Dokja gripped his blade, blood on his face, his ragged company scattered around him, and refused to accept the worst-case scenario. He had climbed 8 floors of living cinema for this exact moment. Now he had to do the impossible one more time, beat the strongest character in the story, without killing the man he had come to save. The loneliest reader in the world faced the puppet of the hero he had read about for a decade. His story, as always, was only just beginning. To save the strongest man in the world, Kim Dokja could not outfight him. No one could. So he would do the one thing no other person alive was capable of. He would reach past the puppet, past the despair, into the deepest wound of a hero who had died and been reborn more times than any human mind could bear, and he would prove, word by word, that the loneliest man in the world had never once been alone. This was the confession the reader had been carrying since the day the world ended. The battle in the Sky Garden was hopeless from the start. The cinema master's puppet, wearing Yu Junghyuk's body, moved like a god. Master, Jai-hai whispered, staring at the man who had saved her. Slash. He cut them down one after another. Junghyuk is under control right now, Dokja shouted. Go for the cinema master. Because you could not free the hero by beating him. You had to destroy the director pulling his strings. The old man in the fine coat only grinned wider. Grin. He was enjoying his own film. They threw everything at him. Jung Hee-won has activated the skill, Time of Judgment. Hui-won lunged, her judge of evil power blazing. How dare you, she cried. But the system delivered cold news. The constellations of the pure good alignment remain silent against Hui-won Jong's request. The skill has been cancelled. What? She gasped. Damn it, why not? Hui-won. Because her power only worked against evil, and even puppet, even hollow, Yu Junghyuk was not evil. It was expected, Dokja thought. He may be ruthless, but Junghyuk has always acted out of the greater good. Even now, the story would not let them treat him as a villain. Gilleong tried next. Gilleong Lee has activated the skill, Thunder of Mjolnir. Lightning crashed down on the puppet. Crackle. But Junghyuk has neutralized the attack with immunity against electricity. I knew he was strong, Dokja thought as the boy was thrown back, but not like this. Thud. There was too much information about this character. Personal skill, character profile, activated. Converting character profile to character summary. And the summary told the tale, the strongest fighter in the story, his skills, his stigmas, his stats all far beyond anything the group could match. The character is currently unconscious. His body fought on autopilot, and his soul was buried somewhere they could not reach. So Kim Dokja played his last card. I'm counting on you, Gilleong, he said. You know what we have to do, right? Yes, Dokja. I'm sorry. Don't mention it. And he consumed the treasure he had saved for exactly this. Consumed the enraged T-Rex DNA ampoule. Your stats are amplified for a 30-minute duration. Stamina, strength, agility, mana, all surged past 30. Your body is gushing with vitality, the system reported. Your muscles are bursting with potential. A mysterious power rages from within your heart. What I lack in skills, Dokja thought, I'll make up for with stats. Activating the personal skill, White Star Weapon Aura. His blade ignited with white light, and it grew stronger with him. The skill level for White Star Weapon Aura has increased. Come at me, you damn sunfish, he snarled at the cinema master, and threw himself into the fight. Clang! Clang! For the first time, someone kept pace with the puppet of the strongest man alive. Dash! Dash! Kim Dokja, juiced on prehistoric power and burning white aura, traded blows with Yu Junghyuk's body and did not immediately die. It will work since his skill levels aren't that high yet, he reasoned. This early in his third life, the regressor had not yet relearned all his most devastating techniques. That was the only opening in the world, and Dokja drove into it. Clang! Crack! But even so, he was barely holding. Ugh, I'm barely able to keep up even with the boost in stats, he admitted. If I don't find a way soon. The puppet countered with the regressor's own weapon. Junghyuk has activated the skill, Blue Star Weapon Aura. Blue light against white, the two auras screaming as they met. And then the cinema master's control began to speak, using Yu Junghyuk's despair as its script. It pains me, came the hollow voice. How many times more? Do I have to repeat this? These were not the puppet's words. They were the hero's own darkest thoughts, dredged up and weaponized. Everything will go back to the way it was if I regress again. My companions will lose their memories, and the histories that I've existed in will be erased. And once again, everything will repeat itself. This was how the cinema master had taken him. The reason the master could control Junghyuk, Dokja understood, was because of his unstable state of mind. The strongest man in the world was also the most broken, worn down by lifetime after lifetime of loss, and the enemy had reached into that exhaustion and pulled the strings. You vowed to live for the greater good, the puppet murmured, mocking the hero with his own oath. But if you could no longer find the will to go on. And that was when Kim Dokja stopped fighting the body and started fighting for the soul. Who is it that I'm speaking to right now? The puppet demanded. And the reader answered not the cinema master, but the man trapped inside. You call yourself the main character, Dokja said. This is only your third regression. You have every right to be pissed off right now. Is that what you really think? What about the resolution you made after your first regression? Because Kim Dokja knew that resolution. He had read it. He knew the vow Yu Junghyuk had sworn to himself before the despair set in, the promise to keep going, to protect, to never surrender to the void. You promised yourself not to think that, Dokja shouted. As the reader of all 3,149 episodes of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. Personal skill, the fourth wall, is resonating. And now the confession poured out of Kim Dokja, the thing he had never told a single soul, the reason he had chased this dying man through 8 floors of living cinema. My eyes are tearing up, he realized. Why is it that my skin is burning up? Because he was about to speak the truth that only he could speak, the witness that no one else in any world could give. When you died in the cinema dungeon like an idiot, he began. When you were crying over your dead sister. When you died after the prophet's betrayal. Each memory, each private agony of the hero's countless lives, Kim Dokja named them one by one, because he had read every single one. When you had a child with the person you loved for the first time. When you went raving mad after your child died. When you fought the demon king and opposed the returnees. When you helped the outer gods and fought against the reincarnated. And when you finally stood before the constellations. Each word, by word, the times I've spent reading 3 ways to survive the apocalypse. I've watched you struggle to survive. For 13 years, in a cramped subway car and a lonely apartment, a single reader had followed you Junghyuk through every death and every rebirth, had wept over his losses, had refused to abandon the story even when he was its only audience left in the world. You call yourself alone, Dokja said, his voice breaking. I'm all alone, the hero had always believed. The last living thing in a doomed world, resetting again and again, watched by no one who remembered. And you say you're alone? How are you alone? Because you were never alone, Kim Dokja was telling him. Someone was always there, on the other side of the page, reading. I, too, he confessed. Kept reading so that I could survive. The hero had survived to keep living. The reader had read to keep living. 2 of the loneliest beings in existence, bound together across the impossible gap between a story and the one man who loved it. Clang. The word struck the puppet harder than any blade. Deep inside the hollow shell, something stirred. Where the cinema master's control had run on despair, Kim Dokja poured in the one thing the master could not counter, proof that Yu Junghyuk's suffering had been witnessed, remembered, and honored. That his 3,000 deaths had meant something to someone. I, too, Dokja cried, kept reading so that I could survive. The 4th wall blazed between them, resonating, tearing the master's grip loose thread by thread. Think about it, the reader pressed, driving each word into the darkness where the hero was drowning. Every time you started over, you told yourself the same thing. That you would not give up. That you would find the world where the most people could be saved, and you would carry them all to the end, no matter how many times it took. That was the vow. That was the man Kim Dokja had followed for 13 years, not the broken shell the cinema master was puppeting, but the stubborn, furious hero who got up after every death and swore to try again. You are not the kind of man who lets a cheap illusionist wear his face, Dokja shouted. You never were. And somewhere in the abyss, the words found the part of Yu Junghyuk that had never truly surrendered, the ember that had survived 1,000 extinctions. Because this was the thing the cinema master had never understood. Despair was only half of Yu Junghyuk. The other half was the reason he kept regressing at all, the refusal, buried under all that grief, to let the story end in defeat. The master had grabbed the despair and thought he had the whole man. But Kim Dokja knew where the other half was hidden, because he had read it, chapter after chapter, year after year, alone in the dark. And he called to it now, not with pity, but with the fierce insistence of the only person who had ever seen the hero whole. Get up, he was saying, in his own way. The scenario has only just begun. Get up. And Yu Junghyuk came back. He's back, someone breathed. The blue aura flickered. The empty eyes filled. The strongest man in the world, dragged out of the void not by force but by a reader's confession, opened his eyes and looked at the person standing in front of him. Crick. Crick. The body that had been a puppet was his own again. Damn it, Dokja thought, half laughing, half crying, dizzy with relief and exhaustion. I went a bit overboard. I was just supposed to stall for time. He had meant only to buy a few minutes. Instead he had confessed his deepest secret to the one man who might understand it. Yu Junghyuk stood free, the cinema master's control shattered, and turned his cold, clear gaze on the ordinary-looking man who had somehow reached him across the abyss. Who are you? The regressor asked. It was not a rejection. It was the deepest question in the story. Because Kim Dokja had just described Yu Junghyuk's entire secret history, lives no living person should have known, deaths that had happened in worlds long erased, and the hero could not begin to comprehend how. This strange, unremarkable man knew him better than anyone alive, had watched him struggle across 1,000 lifetimes, and had wept for him. "Who are you?" he asked again, and the words hung in the ruined sky garden like the start of something enormous. Kim Dokja stood there, drained, bleeding, his borrowed dinosaur strength fading, having just given away the truth he had guarded since the world ended, that he was the sole reader of the story that was now their reality, that he had known Yu Junghyuk long before they ever met. He had saved the strongest man in the world not with a sword but with the simple, devastating fact that someone had always been reading. The cinema master's puppet was broken. The hero was awake. And the question of who Kim Dokja really was now sat between them, waiting for an answer that would change everything. The loneliest reader in the world faced the loneliest hero, and for the first time, neither of them was entirely alone. His story, as always, was only just beginning. "Who are you?" The strongest man in the world asked it with a blade in his hand and confusion in his eyes, because a total stranger had just recited the secret history of his soul. Kim Dokja had shattered the cinema master's control with a confession. Now he had to survive the consequences, finish off a cornered god of illusions, and answer a question he was not ready to answer. And when it was all over, the whole world would look up and make a wish. "What?" Yu Junghyuk said, staring at him. "The fourth wall is being shaken due to excessive immersion," the system warned. Kim Dokja had poured so much of himself into reaching the hero that his own protective barrier was cracking. But it had worked. Could he have come to his senses because of what I said, Dokja wondered. Could it be that easy? Simulation, the cinema master is flustered. "Who the hell?" the old illusionist sputtered, because his puppet had just cut its own strings. The regressor was awake, and he was furious. "Simulation, the cinema master has strengthened his control over Junghyuk." The master fought to reclaim his weapon, and for a moment the blue aura flickered back. "Arg," the hero groaned, caught between the master's grip and his own returning will. But it was already too late. Junghyuk's blue star weapon aura is growing stronger, the system reported. "I knew it," Dokja thought, half in awe and half in dread. "There's no way it would have been this easy. It's so unfair fighting against the protagonist. I can't believe he became stronger in this short while." Even shaking off mind control, Yu Junghyuk grew more powerful by the second. "Hey, Junghyuk," Dokja called. "Do you remember what I asked you before?" he said. "I asked if I could punch you just once. And you said Junghyuk will be much stronger than me in the future. But now," the reader thought, gathering himself, "if I give it my all, I could." Because Kim Dokja was not going to let the cinema master keep even a sliver of the hero. He would end this, and he would need every weapon he had. Unbreakable Faith's special property has been activated. The ether affix is changed to fire. His blade roared into flame. Whoosh! Slash! And then he unleashed the treasure from the battle at sea. "You have activated the Stigma, Sword Song." The naval warfare god Stigma, one of the most powerful combat buffs in existence, the gift of a legendary admiral, settled over him like a war poem made real. Amidst the raining arrows and the barrage of gunfire, the old verse went, "It was as if the battlefield was struck by a thundering storm." A phrase left behind by the naval warfare god engulfed his sword. Pow! 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 The reader became a storm, striking with the borrowed fury of 400 years of naval legend, driving the cinema master's puppet back step by step. The master would not release his weapon without a fight. Junghyuk has activated the skill, Resuscitation, Level 2. Whoosh! Dash! The hero's body surged with restorative power, wounds closing, strength returning, the two of them tearing across the sky garden in a blur of blue and white and fire. "Damn it," Dokja panted, "he's recovered already." And in that instant of danger, a small voice rang out. Gilliang. The boy who spoke to insects had one card left. A grade A monarch-level insect, Titanoptera, has appeared. From somewhere beyond the movie, Gilliang called his giant friend from the prehistoric floor, the towering Titanoptera, and it crashed into the garden with a shriek. He, Titano, the boy stammered. Gua. The insect monarch threw itself into the fight, buying precious seconds, and for the first time the cinema master's control began to slip for good. Cornered, the old illusionist reached for his deadliest trick. Simulation, the cinema master has attempted to use the skill, bomb. He would blow them all to pieces rather than lose. Crack. Crash. The garden began to detonate around them. "What are you smiling about?" the master demanded, because through all of it, Kim Dokja was grinning. 3. A cold voice began to count. The reader had planned for this too. "This is," the master gasped, realizing too late that his own bomb had been turned against him. 3. 2. Personal skill, the fourth wall, activated. The barrier that had shielded Kim Dokja from every horror in this world now shielded him from the blast, and the cinema master's final gambit detonated in the master's own face. "Could you be," the old man whispered, staring at the unremarkable survivor who had beaten him. "Ah." And then he came apart in a shower of light, defeated. "You are the first to defeat simulation, the cinema master. You have received 3,000 coins for your achievement. The clear condition for the hidden scenario has been met. You have received 4,000 coins for your achievement." "Huh," Dokja breathed, swaying. "I was sure he used his skill on me. Was I okay because of the fourth wall? The wall that no one, not even Kim Dokja, fully understood had saved his life once again." "Dokja," someone called. "Gilliang." Plop. The exhausted boy collapsed, his giant insect fading, and the barrier surrounding the cinema dungeon began to disappear at last. "Phew, thank God," someone sighed. "It's just left." They had cleared it. 8 floors of living cinema, a possessed hero, a god of illusions, all of it, cleared. "Dokja, are you alright?" Hui-1 asked. "I'm fine," he said. "What about you, Hui-1?" "I'm fine too. And so is Jai-Hai. She can't talk right now, her face is swollen." Ding. The third main scenario is drawing to an end. It looks like they're almost done downstairs too. Because while they had been climbing through movies, the survivors of Chungnuro had been surviving the monster onslaught, and now both battles were ending at once. Oh. The dungeon released them, and they climbed back up into the ruined world. And what they found stole the breath from all of them. "Seoul has," Jai-Hai began, looking out over the city, "been destroyed. The great capital, the city they had all lived in before the apocalypse, lay shattered and burning to the horizon. But then, in the ash-gray dawn, something impossible lit the sky. A shooting star," someone gasped. Streaks of light began to rain down across the heavens, dozens of them, hundreds, falling in silent silver arcs over the broken skyline. "Wow," a survivor breathed. "It's so goddamn pretty. After all the horror, after the blood and the monsters and the dying, the sky put on a show of terrible, aching beauty." But Kim Dokja knew what the beauty meant, and it was not peace. Shooting stars are an omen of an upcoming main scenario, he thought grimly. A catastrophic nightmare unparalleled to what we've experienced will be waiting for us at the landing sites of those shooting stars around the world. Each falling star was a doorway to something worse than anything they had yet faced. The stars were not an ending. They were an invitation to a new and greater hell. Still, for this one quiet moment, the survivors let themselves simply look. "Aren't you going to make a wish?" someone asked, watching the stars fall. "Make a wish on the cause of all this calamity?" It was absurd, wishing on the very thing that would soon try to kill them. But Kim Dokja turned to the man beside him, the hero he had just dragged back from the void, and found that Yu Junghyuk had already closed his eyes. "I already did," the regressor said. "What did you wish for?" "They say it won't come true," Dokja teased, "if you tell the others what you wished for." But Yu Junghyuk told him anyway, and it was the most human thing the strongest man in the world had ever said. "I wished," he murmured, "that I would survive to see the epilogue of a certain novel." A certain novel. 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. The story of his own 1,000 lives, the story only Kim Dokja had read to the end. The hero who had regressed 1,000 times, who had died and been reborn and lost everything again and again, wished only to live long enough to reach the ending, to finally see how his story turned out. And Kim Dokja, the sole reader of that story, standing beside its protagonist under a rain of falling stars, understood that wish more deeply than any person alive ever could. The system delivered its verdict over the ruined, starlit city. The hidden scenario has been completed. Main Scenario 3, Emergency Defense, has been completed. Category, Main. Difficulty, B-. Clear condition, all green zones in the station have been destroyed, spawning the remaining monsters all at once. Survive the onslaught for the remaining duration. You have received 1,000 coins for your achievement. They had done it. The green zone arc was over. Chungmuro had survived, the landlords were broken, the regressor was saved, and a girl who had wanted to die now stood watching the stars with the will to live. And a brand new hell awaits us, Kim Dokja thought, watching the shooting stars fall over the corpse of Seoul, when the sun rises. Because that was the truth he never let himself forget. Every victory was only a doorway to the next trial, and the falling stars promised a scenario more terrible than anything they had yet endured. But tonight, for a few precious minutes, the loneliest reader in the world stood among friends who had chosen to follow him, beside a hero who had wished to live, and let himself watch the beautiful, deadly sky. His story, as always, was only just beginning. The monsters were beaten, the stars had fallen, and for one heartbeat Kim Dokja could breathe. But peace was a lie in this world, and the next scenario was already loading. Before the sun rose on a new hell, the reader would have to answer a quiet woman's dangerous questions, ask her to trust him with her life, and seize control of an entire station out from under a coalition of tyrants. And all of it began the moment the system chimed. The 4th main scenario will begin shortly. Main Scenario 3, Emergency Defense, has ended. You have received 1,000 coins for your achievement. What, Dokja thought, staring at the message. Already? It hasn't even been 10 minutes since the 3rd scenario ended. There was never any rest. The apocalypse ran on a schedule that did not care how tired you were. Yu Junghyuk, drained from breaking the cinema master's control, had collapsed into unconsciousness. Stay here with Junghyuk, Dokja told Sangha. Is that okay? He won't be of any help right now. He could also cause more problems if he wakes up. Just let me know if he wakes up. Then, looking at the sleeping hero who had caused him so much trouble, the reader allowed himself one small, petty wish. I'd like to smack him on the head once more, he thought. But Yu Sangha had heard things during that battle, things Kim Dokja had never meant anyone to hear. On the stairs, she caught up to him, and she was gently, persistently curious. "You are gonna be the death of me," she said. "You almost gave me a heart attack." Then she asked the question that had been troubling her. "Have you filtered the chat? I might have said a bit too much earlier." "Of course I have," Dokja said. "I have no intention of ruining my channel. Information like that gets filtered automatically." Because the constellations were watching everything, and Kim Dokja could not afford to let them learn what he truly was. Constellations have massive wealth and power, but are not all-knowing, he explained, meaning that they don't have all the information. That was the crack he lived in, the one blind spot in a universe of watching gods. Sangha pressed carefully. She had heard fragments of his confession to Yu Junghyuk, the impossible knowledge, the talk of regressions and novels. "If my guess is correct," she said, "what I've said earlier would have been filtered like this to the constellations." "Is that what you really think? What about the resolution you made after your first regression?" She had heard him recount the hero's private history, and she was piecing together something enormous. "When you were like an idiot," she quoted haltingly, "when you were crying over your dead sister, when you had a child for the first time, when you helped and fought against them, and when you finally stood before them. It wouldn't have been any less severe than this." This is how they hid the fact that Jung-Hee-kyu was a regressor in the early chapters of the novel. Could it be, she wondered, you too? Is this a restriction put in place by the feasibility? Also, there were too many messages, so I blocked some of them out at my own discretion. That's strange. Is there a mission that even the Dakibi aren't privy to? Kim Dokja did not confirm it. But he did not deny it either. Instead, he did what he always did with the people he had decided to keep close, he brought them nearer. "Aren't you tired, Dokja?" she said, changing the subject with a small kindness. "I'll carry Gilliang for a bit." "Oh, thank you." And the constellations noticed the strange, quiet bond between them. A few constellations that are in search for the truth have taken interest in you. The secretive plotter is intrigued by your presence. You have been gifted 2,000 coins. "Keep up the good work, Dokja," one seemed to say. "Just show me the messages from the highest-paying constellations." "What am I, your manager?" Dokja thought wryly. Then he asked her the thing he had come to ask. "Did you hear any of what I said earlier?" Sangha nodded slowly. "Yes, I did hear some of it." "I thought she would be too far away to hear anything," Dokja thought. "Who are you really, Dokja?" she asked at last, the same question Yu Junghyuk had asked in the Sky Garden. He began. "Do you know the future?" "I know the future," he admitted, partially. "Does Sangha or Hyeon-seong know?" "Not yet." "You're not going to kill me all of a sudden, are you?" she asked, and there was fear under the joke. "What? Why would you say that?" "That's what people do at times like these," she said quietly. "They say something like, you know too much. If that was the case, I would have killed all of you much earlier." And then Kim Dokja said the opposite of a threat. "I didn't mean it like that," he told her. "It's actually the opposite. The scenario up ahead will be even more dangerous. Our lives will be in danger and we might risk having to lose something that is dear to us. And, so. I want you by my side as always." He looked at the woman who had guided them out of labyrinths, who had shared her quiet knowledge in a dozen crises, who had kept her own secrets under a constellation's deadly pledge. "I'm asking you to be my companion." It was the exact word Yu Junghyuk had never given him. The reader, who knew what it was to be alone on the other side of a story, offered it freely to someone else. Sangha, moved, gave her answer, and Kim Dokja's little company grew stronger by one more soul who chose him not out of fear, but out of trust. But there was no time to savor it, because down in Chungmuro, the fourth scenario was arriving, and Kim Dokja had unfinished business with a station full of tyrants. "Where is that bastard called Dokja?" the survivors murmured. And there, waiting for him, was Pilda Gong, the armament lord he had defeated and hired, rubbing his bruised pride. "That bastard, where has he been all this time?" the landlord growled. Pilda Gong, Dokja greeted him coolly. "It looks like he's gotten considerably stronger." "Grr, that punk, I oughta." The fourth main scenario will begin in 5 minutes. Hee, Hyen Seong and Sangha, Dokja called to his friends, gathering his company for what came next. Ding! The Dakibi Baihyong burst back onto the channel with a flourish. "Hamaha, how have you been, everyone?" it crowed. "I can tell that you've been great from the looks on your faces." It had come to deliver the rules of the fourth main scenario. But first, the system announced a prelude. A new sub-scenario has arrived. "This game that's about to take place is like a prelude," Baihyong explained, "a warm-up of sorts." Sub-scenario, Leader Election. Category, Sub. Difficulty, C, Clear Condition, take the white flag installed at the center of the platform. Time limit, 30 minutes. Reward, 1,000 coins. The winner is elected as the leader of Chungmuro. And the crucial line, you will be granted absolute authority over others at the station when elected the leader. Whoever sees that flag would rule Chungmuro. And Kim Dokja, who had read the whole story, moved before anyone else understood the stakes. "If I take that flag and become the leader," he thought, "I won't have to take orders from that." He needed control of this station for what was coming, and he was not about to let it fall to the coalition. "Out of my way," the landlord snarled, scrambling for the flag. Pildu, down. Crash. Kim Dokja cut through them and reached the flagpole first. "You have taken the white flag from the flagpole. You have been given authority to command as per the contract. You have become the leader of Chungmuro Station. You have been granted the right to walk the king's path. Dokja Kim has taken the white flag. If the ownership of the flag does not change in the next 5 minutes, Chungmuro Station will remain under his command. This flag originally belongs to Jung Hikyu in his third regression," Dokja knew, "but I guess he's strong enough to take it without it." In the original story, the regressor had held this flag. Now the reader held it instead, one more sign that this third life was bending away from the script Kim Dokja remembered. The coalition would not go quietly. "Take the flag," their leader roared. "We have 5 minutes to take it from him." Roar. They charged. But Kim Dokja had allies now, and gifts to give. "Hyen Seong, catch," he called, and tossed the big soldier a treasure from the cinema dungeon reward room. "I got you a new one," he said. "Throw away the one you used to have." The shield of Hercules, a grade A relic, sailed through the air into the soldier's hands. Lee Hyen Seong has activated the special skill, Area Defense. The soldier planted himself like a wall, and the coalition's charge broke against him. "Pildu, out of the way," someone screamed as the armament lord tried to reclaim his old power. The stigma, militarized zone, level 6, of the character Pildu Gong has been activated. But Pildu now answered to Kim Dokja's contract. "Pildu," Dokja said as the landlord tried to rise, "I don't think I told you you could get up just yet." Thud. "You have been given authority to command as per the contract." The tyrant sat back down. "Now that we're done with the housekeeping, let's talk," Dokja said, turning to the survivors who remained. "There are 29 people left altogether," he counted. 20 of them belong to the landlord coalition. He stood at a crossroads, the newly crowned leader of a broken station, and he had a choice to make about the kind of ruler he would be. "It's not that many, but it should be fine," he thought. "It's about time that I make more allies. And there are 9 others including us. It's time to pick and choose. He could rule them by fear, the way the coalition had. Or he could do what he always did. You can either leave Chungnyeoro and head to another station, he told them, or you can stay here with me. I have to keep only the people I can trust close from now on. He laid out the terms plainly, honestly, the way a leader who did not want to become a monster would. I won't stop you if you're going to leave, he said. But you have to do as I say if you decide to stay. So you're going to play king, are you? I won't beat around the bush, Dokja answered. I won't charge you survival fees or anything like that. I can guarantee safety from the outside threat, but I won't interfere with what goes on internally within the group. You'll have to sort that out amongst yourselves. No extortion. No rent on survival. Just protection, and the freedom to govern themselves. It was the opposite of everything the landlord coalition had stood for. One by one, they chose him. We've wronged you in the past, some admitted, but please forgive us. I'm not the one you should be begging for forgiveness, Dokja said. You have become the true leader of Chungnyeoro Station thanks to the power of the white flag. People in your group, 24. The sub-scenario has been completed. He had turned a station of frightened tenants and defeated tyrants into a company of 24 under his command, not through cruelty, but through the one thing the coalition never offered, trust. A king, he mused, looking at the white flag in his hand. Let's get the main game started then. And the main game arrived. The fourth main scenario has been activated. Main Scenario 4, Capture the Flag. Category, Main. Difficulty, C. Each station now held a flag, and the survivors of each would have to defend their own while seizing the flags of the others, a war of stations spread across the ruins of the city. Time limit, 12 days. Reward, 2,000 coins. Penalty for failure, death. The prelude was over. The real war, the future war, had begun. Kim Dokja stood at the head of his new company, the white flag of Chungnyeoro in his grip and a decade of impossible knowledge in his head, ready to lead 24 souls into a scenario that spanned the whole ruined city. The loneliest reader in the world had become a king. His story, as always, was only just beginning. A rival group arrived at Chungnyeoro offering friendship, an alliance, and a secret tactic to win the whole scenario. Every word out of their mouths was reasonable. And that was exactly how Kim Dokja knew they had come to kill him. Because the reader had learned the oldest rule of the apocalypse, the more generous the stranger, the sharper the knife behind his back. Today, the future war would begin not with monsters, but with men wearing smiles. The rules of the fourth scenario were laid bare. Main Scenario 4, Capture the Flag. Each station is given a flagpole where a flag can be planted. The flag can only be held by the leader of each group. You must defend your flag from the other groups. If another group's flag is planted, your station will be taken over by the new leader, and the fate of your group will be left at their disposal. We have to defend our flag, Dokja realized, and at the same time plant our flag at their flagpole. It was war, station against station, across the ruins of the city. Do you think we have to fight other people again? Someone asked quietly. It says here that once we plant our flag into their flagpole, we will have the other group at our disposal. Kim Dokja considered it. We might not have to kill anyone, he said. If we could assimilate them into our own group, we may be able to complete the scenario without killing anyone. It doesn't say anywhere that the losers will die. Oh, you're right, Sangha agreed. But Dokja knew better than to hope. The fourth scenario will have more casualties than any scenarios that came before it, he thought grimly. There's no such thing as a deathless scenario. He had read what was coming. He simply refused to add to the body count if he could help it. First, they needed a target. "Which line is Changsin Station in?" someone asked. "We need to know that first." "It's on line 6, Dokja said. "If we move through the tunnels, we could go through Yaksu and pass one of the transfer stations. Then we'll have to split the group. How about some of us stay behind for guard duty while the others go scouting?" Whoosh! "The safety barrier around Chungmuro has been deactivated due to the scenario," the system announced. "You can now move freely between stations." The walls were down. The city had become a battlefield. Before he left, Kim Dokja had to settle things with the man he had conquered and hired. "I know you don't like me," he told Pildagong. "But you need to adapt to the situation. You're not a landlord anymore. I know why it is that you obsess over land ownership," he added, more gently. "But you know where to draw the line if you want to survive. You will be in charge of guarding the station." "Why would I listen to?" the landlord snarled. "Think about it," Dokja said. "And think about your family who have been separated from you." That struck home. "I won't force you to follow my order. But if you do as I say, I will reward you accordingly. You can talk now, Pildu." Grit. The tyrant swallowed his pride and took his post. And then, before they could even set out, the enemy came to them. Vroom! A rail cart came screaming down the dark tunnel, headlights blazing. Could the invasion already have begun, Dokja thought, when the scenario only just started? They've finally opened up Chungmuro. Beep! Beep! The cart skidded to a halt, and armed strangers spilled out. "Stop right there," someone commanded. "Lower your weapons and approach slowly." "Wait, calm down, will you?" one of the newcomers said, raising his hands. "We're not here to fight you. Please, there's no need for that. Gosh, I've almost wet my pants." Then, a smooth introduction. "Let me introduce myself first. I am Ilhan Kong, the vice leader of the Dong Demon Group." Ilhan Kong. Do I know him from Dong Demon? Dokja thought, and the name did not match anything in his memory of the story. This is too fishy. It might be one of those variables I was worried about. He activated his skill. Character profile. And the result confirmed his unease. He must be a character in the novel, seeing how my skill works on him, but he was no one Dokja. Recognized, a face the original story had never named. Rumor expert, the profile read, "Isn't it too early for the likes of him? This man should not be here, not now, not with this much confidence." The Dong Demon Group made their pitch, and it was all sweetness. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Dokja," Ilhan smiled. "You must be the leader here, seeing how you have the flag. Only leaders can plant the flag. We're here to offer you an alliance." Something feels off about them, Dokja thought. "I oppose," someone in his own group muttered. "I don't trust them." But Kim Dokja played along, curious to see how deep the deception ran. "What is your offer?" he asked. "To offer you an alliance," Ilhan repeated. "Actually, we know a secret that may prove very useful. We know a sure-win tactic when it comes to the fourth scenario." A sure-win tactic. It was the perfect bait, dangled for a desperate leader. But Sangha, sharp as ever, asked the question that unraveled it. She had just won. "Where is your leader?" she said. "Why did you come to Chungmuro?" And there it was, the crack in the story. If you came from Dong Demon, Dokja pressed, you could have allied with many other stations nearby. Chungmuro started late in the original novel, as well. From what I remember, we do have less information than they do. And that was the tell. Chungmuro Station just opened. The other stations have already formed alliances, you see. But Chungmuro wouldn't have made any alliances yet. So why, of all the fresh and powerful stations they could have courted, had the Dong Demon group traveled all the way to the one station that had nothing to offer and no allies to lend? There was only one answer. They had not come to ally with Chungmuro. They had come to conquer it, while it was young and alone and unguarded. We'll decide after meeting your leader, Ilhan said, trying to lure them out. Where is your leader? In Dong Demon, I'll lead the way if you want. All right then, Dokja said, and let them believe they had one. Stay behind and rest up, Giliang, he told the boy. Pildu, take good care of Giliang. He gathered Sangha and the others and climbed aboard, walking straight into the trap with his eyes wide open. Let's pretend we're interested and follow them, he murmured to his people. We'll get away from them if they seem suspicious. The cart roared back into the tunnels. Vroom. And the ambush sprang exactly as Kim Dokja had known it would. Shoot. Crash. The Dong Demon men turned on them mid-journey, weapons flashing in the dark. What do you think you're doing? One demanded, feigning shock. Seriously, Dokja answered, that's what I wanted to ask you. You should have worked on your hiding skills if you wanted to ambush us. He had seen it coming a mile away. But these were not the frightened tenants of Chungmuro. These were killers, and one of them carried a weapon Kim Dokja recognized with a jolt. They came at his company hard, and for a moment it was chaos, blades and bodies in the cramped dark. Tie these men up for me, Sangha, Dokja called, and his people moved with the discipline he had drilled into them. But the enemy had numbers and fury. Aya! Damn it, one of the fallen thugs seethed, how did I end up taking orders from a young punk like him? Kim Dokja was everywhere, borrowing strength, reading moves before they landed, but he needed more than himself. He needed his judge. Hui Won, now. Jung Hee Won has activated the skill, Time of Judgment. And this time, it worked. The constellations of the pure good alignment are agreeing with the use of the skill. Because unlike the puppet hero in the Sky Garden, these men were genuinely, unambiguously evil, ambushers and murderers, and the gods of pure good sanctioned their execution without hesitation. Slash. Huan's power ignited, red and righteous, and she cut through the Dong Demon raiders like wheat. She gasped, I didn't think this would work. What's with this skill? Compared to the cinema, Dokja thought, watching her tear through the ambush, these guys were a piece of cake. After facing the strongest man in the world. Puppet by a god of illusions, a pack of station thugs was almost a relief. But then Kim Dokja saw the weapon, truly saw it, and his blood ran cold. That's the weapon that Mr. Kim used to have, one of the enemy stammered, and Dokja understood. These raiders were carrying gear that had belonged to Yu Junghyuk in a version of events Dokja half remembered, a sign the enemy had crossed paths with the regressor before, or worse. Seeing the direction they came from, someone reasoned, they must be the Myeongdong group. Looks like they've teamed up with Dong Demon. Two stations, allied, striking at Chungmuro together while it was newborn and alone. The invasion was larger and better coordinated than a fresh station had any right to face. Dokja, Chungmuro is, someone cried, the realization landing all at once. Because if this force had come for them, the station they'd left behind, guarded by only a handful, was in terrible danger. Aya. The fight reached its peak, Hyun's judgment falling, Sangha binding the defeated, Kim Dokja standing in the middle of it all, directing his company like the leader he had become. And through the smoke and the blood, the enemy's true commander finally revealed himself, the one holding the stolen weapon, the one the others deferred to. He must be the leader, the thought rang out. Not the smiling vice leader Ilhan Kong who had done all the talking, but the silent figure behind him, the real power of the enemy alliance. Kim Dokja had walked into an ambush and turned it inside out, exposing a two-station conspiracy and capturing its raiders, all before his own war had truly begun. But the weapon in the enemy's hands whispered of connections to the regressors' past. The Myeongdong and Dong demon groups had joined forces against him, and somewhere behind them stood a leader he had not yet measured. The future war was no longer coming. It was here, in the dark of the tunnels, blade against blade, station against station. The loneliest reader in the world stood at the head of his company, the white flag of Chungmuro waiting to be defended, and faced the first true rival of the war. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja had captured the enemy's raiders, but the war for the city had only just started. To win it, he would seize an enemy's flag, wring a secret out of a prisoner, and unlock the most dangerous prize in the entire scenario, a path that promised him a crown or a grave. And back at base, his own confession to a sleeping hero would come back to haunt him in the most embarrassing way imaginable. First, the Battle of Flags. Hyunti Kim, the leader of Myeongdong, had used the effect of the red flag, and the Myeongdong group had received its buff. Everyone's attack and defense has increased by 9%, the system reported. Because that was the secret mechanic of this scenario. The color of the flag was what determined the victor in this battle of flags. Starting with white, the flags climbed through a ladder of power, red, navy, brown, purple, and finally black. As a flag's color changed, it provided a better buff for your group. The more stations you conquered, the stronger your flag grew, and the stronger your whole company became. It was a war that fed on itself. Fight until we get to the flagpole, the enemy roared. Roar. But Kim Dokja's company was ready. The stigma, militarized zone, level 6, of the character Pil de Gong has been activated. Pil de Gong's skill, private property, has been activated. The armament lord, now fighting for Chungmuro, turned his turrets on the Myeongdong raiders. Crash. Pow. Pow. And Kim Dokja led the charge himself. Unbreakable Faith special property has been activated. The ether affix is changed to fire. Flare. His blade blazed, and he cut a burning path through the enemy line. Regroup, everyone, the Myeongdong men cried as their assault collapsed. Run, retreat. Where do you think you're going, Dokja said, and did not let them flee. This wasn't the intel we had gathered, one enemy gasped, because Kim Dokja fought nothing like the fresh, weak leader they had expected. Move it, hurry, Dokja ordered his people, driving toward the flagpole. Crash. Pow. And there it was. Plop. He took hold of the Myeongdong flag, and the system rang out. You have obtained the flag of the Myeongdong group. Your white flag has evolved into a red flag. Your white flag has absorbed the contribution points accumulated in the red flag. Pil de Gong's skill, private property, level 6, has been activated. You are one step closer to the king's path. His flag had leveled up, his company had grown stronger, and a mysterious new path had opened before him. But victory was only half the work. Now came the interrogation. His flag boosts the stats of not only the leader, Dokja explained, but also all the members belonging to a group once it reaches the color red. This is what causes them their way to their target station. He had captured the enemy's vice leader, Ilhan Kong, and he needed to know what the Dong Demon and Myeongdong alliance was really planning. All the other stations and their leaders should be at war with one another to upgrade the flags they have, he reasoned. Say, why didn't you go a little easy on them? Humph, how am I supposed to go easy when they're coming at us like that? What will you do with me? The prisoner asked. That depends on how useful you prove to be, Dokja said. The constellations have deemed them evil. Maybe we should try torturing them. That's too much work, he decided. We'll just kill them if they refuse to talk. I'm going to count to 3, he warned. If you don't tell me anything during that time, you're dead. 1. Crack. 2. Crack. 3. Dongmyo, the prisoner blurted. At Dongmyo. The Alliance's true target, or their gathering point, spilled out under the pressure. And there was more. People there told us about Chungmuro, Ilhan admitted. They call themselves the Prophets. The Prophets. That name again, the followers of a woman with a demon's eye who could see the future. Sangha moved to keep the prisoner from leaking anything further to the watching channels. Sangha, use your thread to shut his mouth, Dokja said, and she bound the man's jaw. They're using hypnosis to stop information from leaking, he realized of the enemy's methods. Hypnosis can only be used against someone who they've met face to face. As long as we have him hostage, he'll be able to point us to one of them. The enemy was organized, coordinated, and backed by prophets. This was no random band of thugs. This was a war machine, and Kim Dokja had just captured one of its gears. Then, a quieter matter. Is he still out? Someone asked of Yu Junghyuk, still unconscious back at base. Don't worry about us and rest up. What about downstairs, my master, is he going to be okay? He will be, Dokja said. He may be traumatized a little. He'll get better after a good rest, so please look after him. You sound like you know a lot about him. I know him better than anyone else in the world. And that was truer than anyone could guess. He left a note for the hero. Here, don't read it, just give it to Junghyuk when he wakes up, he told Sangha. It's full of words that only Junghyuk would understand, so she won't get it though. She said she'll probably read it, someone laughed. I wonder if what I wrote in the note is censored for the constellations, Dokja thought. The constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, expresses his distaste for censorship. I see. But, can I ask you one thing? And here came the disaster. Because Sangha and Huiwon had overheard Kim Dokja's desperate confession to Yu Junghyuk in the Sky Garden, all his talk of shared lives and never leaving and reading each other's stories, and they had drawn an entirely wrong conclusion. Earlier this morning, Sangha began carefully, you and Master. Damn it, Dokja thought, did Jai-Hai hear us too? I've yapped my mouth off, not thinking about whoever was nearby. You know, you too, one of them said, barely holding back a grin. What? You know, you said. What did I say? You promised yourself not to think that, they quoted, and dissolved into meaningful looks. What about the resolution you made after your first regression, what's it called? There's no need to mimic what I said, Dokja sputtered. What about the resolution you made after your, what's it called? You're not alone, we're in this together, they teased, twisting his heartfelt words into something else entirely. I'll always be by your side, don't you ever lose hope. I never said anything like that. Think about our child. How is it that she's twisted up my words like this? Dokja despaired. What about our child? They pressed, delighted. Wait, did you two adopt a child? Ask Junghyuk when he wakes up. His sincere, soul-bearing speech to save the strongest man in the world had been overheard and reinterpreted as a love confession, and now his own companions were merciless. Many constellations are shocked by what was censored to them. The prisoner of the golden headband is respectful of your orientation. The demonic judge of fire is delighted by your comradeship. The secretive plotter is flabbergasted. You have been gifted 600 coins. Those idiots, Dokja groaned, as even the gods got the wrong idea and paid him for it. But beneath the comedy, a chilling truth was forming in Kim Dokja's mind. The prophets. Anna Croft. The organized enemy who knew about Chunmuro before they should have. Never in the course of 3 ways to survive the apocalypse have I ever come across the name the prophets, he thought. Then this could only mean one of 2 things. Either a certain variable has caused another prophet other than Anna Croft to appear. And the other is. He hardly dared think it. That there is another reader like myself. Someone else who had read the story. Someone else who knew the future. It's most likely the latter, he judged. Prophets are a rare breed, after all. There was another player on the board who saw the same pages he did, and that was the most dangerous possibility of all. Dokja, are you sure we don't need to bring more people? Someone asked. We're going to go with them, not to fight them. The people of Myeongdong Station will die if we leave them like this. Unless they're extremely lucky, the people who have become drifters will soon fall prey to other groups. Just like the Landlord Coalition members who left Chunmuro. Are you sad that we did not get to make them our allies? A little. You shouldn't trust people too easily. I know, but still, I wanted to believe them. That's how I was able to make it this far. Kim Dokja's stubborn, dangerous faith in people was the very thing that had carried him through the apocalypse, and he would not abandon it now. And then the final prize revealed itself. With the Myeongdong raiders defeated and their station standing empty, the system offered Kim Dokja a choice. Myeongdong Station is currently unoccupied. Will you take over the station? He planted the red flag of Chunmuro, and the system rang like a bell. You have taken over Myeongdong Station. A station you have taken over cannot be lost until you lose your flag or lose your HQ, currently occupied territory, Chunmuro headquarters, Myeongdong. The contribution points of the red flag have increased. You have expanded your territory by taking over another station. And then, the doorway to power and doom. A new hidden scenario has arrived. The King's Path has opened up. Hidden scenario, the King's Path. Category, hidden. Difficulty, a clear condition, take over 10 or more stations within the given time period. Time limit, 10 days. Reward, the King attribute. Penalty for failure, you and everyone in your group will die if you fail to take over at least 1 station per day. It was the ultimate gamble. Conquer the city, 10 stations in 10 days, and become a king. Fail even once, and everyone he had gathered would die. This dreadful scenario begins at last, Kim Dokja thought, gripping the red flag of Chunmuro. He had captured a prisoner, uncovered a rival reader, and unlocked a path to a crown paved with the threat of death. The loneliest reader in the world raised his flag over a conquered station and set his sights on the whole ruined city. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja had just become the king of a station, but the crown came with a death sentence: conquer 10 stations in 10 days, or everyone he loved would die. And on the road to his first conquest, he would meet the thing he feared most in this whole apocalypse. Not a monster. Not a tyrant. Another reader. A man who had read the same story Kim Dokja had, and who was now wearing the identity of the strongest hero alive like a stolen coat. This looks like a difficult scenario, Dokja thought, studying the King's Path. Are you going to be okay, Dokja? But I'm glad that you're the leader. I can't tell if they're good people or they're naive. Most would be green with envy that I got the hidden scenario. Should I call you Your Majesty from now on? Someone teased. You must be joking. Why would I want anything like that? Well, Your Majesty, if what the hidden scenario is saying is true, we should be trying to take over a new station right now. The clock was already running. 10 stations. 10 days. Fail to take even one in a day, and the penalty was death for the whole group. But before the war, Kim Dokja made a decision about the kind of king he would be. He would not rule alone. Sangha, he said. Yes. Not everyone is good at the same thing. She's not a great fighter like Hui-Wan, nor is she a great tank like Hyeon-seong. And she doesn't have a great hidden ability like Gilliang. Sangha is probably thinking about her role in the group. Do you remember what you said in the subway? He reminded her. I have my own life and you also have your own life to live. You're needed here. And then he shared his crown. That being said, I would like to award you with a title. What do you guys think? Your Majesty, your word is my command. Chungmuro's leader, Dokja Kim, has shared his authority with Sangha-yu. Sangha-yu has become the vice representative of Chungmuro Station. Sangha-yu can now punish other group members in place of the leader. I'm not sure if I'm worthy of this, Sangha said. I'm only doing this because it's you. I will do my best. Sangha wasn't just a pretty female employee of human resources that everyone looked up to. She had a gift for organizing people, for judging who belonged where, and Kim Dokja gave her the authority to use it. I gave her the job because everyone had their own field of expertise, he reasoned. Can you give me a title too? Someone begged. Something that suits me. What about an executioner? Never mind. The mood was light, for a moment, a company of survivors joking under a king who ruled by trust instead of fear. Then the assignments. We should first learn about the people who attacked us, Dokja decided. We'll head for Dongmyo right away. Can you come with me, Hui-Wan and Hyeon-seong? I want you to stay here, Sangha. We can't leave Gilliang here alone like this. We also need someone to watch over Pildagong, and we need someone to lead the anxious group members. We also need to defend ourselves against Hohyun. They could come for our station while we're away. We do have Pilda for that, but we may need your skill depending on the situation. He split his forces with a general's care, then set out with his judge and his soldier toward the enemy's territory. On the road, Hui-Wan asked about the hero they'd left behind. About that prick on the roof, is it okay to just leave him there? You mean Jung Hee-kyu? Yeah, him. He should be fine, Dokja said. You sound as if you know him well. How do you know him? And Kim Dokja reached for a way to explain a bond no one could understand. It's like having a baby brother, he said. Hui-Wan, do you have a baby brother? Yes. He started 7th grade this year. Why? It's annoying. They never listen and pick fights with you. He even caused trouble at school, so I had to go in place of Mom. But you're worried about him now, right? Yeah. That was the closest Kim Dokja could come to describing 13 years of reading about Yoo Jung-hyuk, the exasperated, helpless affection of someone who had watched another person suffer and refused to look away. And here the reader admitted a secret that surprised even him. He had always thought of himself as the loneliest reader in the world, the sole audience of 3 ways to survive the apocalypse. But that was not quite true. It had quite a lot of readers during its first 10 episodes, he recalled. And even had 12 readers up until its 50th episode. In the earlier years of the story, I wasn't the only person reading. The people I fought online then. Somewhere out there had been other readers, people who had opened the same story and, one by one, abandoned it, until only Kim Dokja remained. He had assumed they were all gone. He was about to learn how wrong he was. They reached Dongdaemun History and Culture Park Station, and it was wrong. This is strange, Dokja murmured. There's no one around. This station is under the control of Dongmyo Station. And a colder realization followed. Ilhan Kong has become a wanderer. It must have been a trap, he thought. It looks as if Dongdaemun Station was taken over. Whoever had Myeongdong and Dongdaemun attack Chungmuro must have known that they would fail to take over Chungmuro. The ambush he'd survived had been a sacrifice, bait sent by a smarter enemy. The people who wanted to take over Myeongdong while they were out, the people who knew that we'd win, no, the people who knew what Chungmuro's original leader was. That was it. That was what they were after. Someone had known the future, had known Chungmuro would win, and had used that knowledge to maneuver. These so-called prophets, Dokja knew now, were not guessing. They were reading. And then he appeared. A man in dark clothes, gold chains at his throat, an easy, knowing smile on his face. Someone's coming, Dokja warned. Ilhan, the newcomer, greeted the captured prisoner. Looks like you've brought unwelcome guests. Are you going to introduce yourselves? Kim Dokja activated his skill on reflex. Personal skill, character profile, activated. And the result froze his blood. This person's profile cannot be browsed using character profile. This character does not have a registered character profile. Seriously, Dokja thought. Only a handful of people in the entire world were immune to his profile skill, people with sealed identities, people the story itself hid. We're from Chungmuro, he said carefully. Chungmuro. And then the stranger did something that confirmed Kim Dokja's worst fear. Someone has used the skill search attribute on you, the system reported. Personal skill, the fourth wall, has blocked the search attribute skill. The man had tried to read Kim Dokja the way Kim Dokja read others. He had a reader's tools. Excuse me, but what is your name? The stranger asked. And here the truth unfolded, one chilling layer at a time. My name is, he said, and grinned. Junghikyu. The people who knew about Junghikyu, the original leader of Chungmuro Station. He was claiming to be the regressor, the strongest man in the world, a man he had never met. How did he know that name, that face, that legend? Because, the man as much as admitted, 3 ways to survive the apocalypse describes Junghikyu's appearance quite often. The adjective that is used most in describing Junghikyu is handsome. With my looks, I guess I could pull it off. It's nothing, sir. I can now know this for sure. This person in front of me is someone who has read 3 ways to survive the apocalypse. And since then, the imposter confessed, I've been acting as Junghikyu. Another reader. The one thing Kim Dokja had feared more than any monster. A person who had opened the same story, who knew the same secrets, who could see the same future, and who had chosen to use that knowledge to impersonate its hero and carve out a kingdom of his own. You better watch what you're doing, you punk, the man warned when Dokja probed too far. Did you not know that I'm using your skill to look us up? He must think that I have the eye of the sage skill, Dokja realized. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? Even now, the imposter assumed Kim Dokja was just another gifted incarnation, not the one true reader who had finished the entire story. Neither knew the full shape of the other. 2 readers, circling in the dark, each hiding how much they truly knew. The man introduced his real self at last. My name is Songguk Lee, he said. I am the vice representative of Dongmyo Station. He had built a whole identity on the stolen legend of Yu Junghyuk, ruling Dongmyo by pretending to be the hero everyone feared. And now his kingdom stood between Kim Dokja and the 10 stations he needed to survive. This station is mine, so pack up and get lost, Songguk said. But Kim Dokja did not deal in threats. He dealt in leverage. You're the vice representative, he said. You have the authority to hand over all the stations your group controls. If you don't hand over the station before I count to 3, I will kill all of you. Didn't you know that? Do you think this is a joke? Songguk sneered. Do you think I'm stupid? You must not get how serious I am. 1. Clang. 2. The blade came out, and the imposter's confidence cracked. 3. Wait, Songguk yelped. I'll do it. That's not enough, Dokja pressed. You were too late. Give us Dong Demon as well. Sorry, the man stammered, all his stolen swagger gone. I was transferred the rights to Dong Demon Culture and History Park, and came to Dongmyo to be transferred the rights to Dong Demon as well. I can give you Dong Demon and History Park, but with Dong Demon, I beg you, please meet with our leader first. On my king's honor, I promise I will not do anything to harm you, Mr. Yu. Because there was still a leader above this impostor, a true power behind the prophets, and Songguk was terrified of what would happen if he defied them. Good, Dokja said. Lead the way. Dongmyo's vice representative, Songguk Lee, has made a promise on the king's honor. Songguk Lee will be punished dearly if he breaks his promise. Kim Dokja had come looking for the people who attacked him, and instead he had found the truth at the heart of the whole war, another reader, hiding behind the hero's face, serving a leader who could see the future. If I remember correctly, Songguk said, leading them deeper into enemy territory, the leader here will be that. The words trailed off, but the meaning hung heavy. This way. He gestured them toward Dongmyo, toward the mysterious leader of the prophets, toward whatever reader or seer sat at the top of this rival kingdom. The system laid the stakes out plain. Main Scenario 4, Capture the Flag. Reward, 2,000 coins. Penalty for failure, death. Kim Dokja had a crown, a company that trusted him, and 10 stations to seize in 10 days. But now he knew the truth, he was not the only one who had read the ending. Somewhere ahead, in the station called Dongmyo, waited a leader who moved survivors like pieces on a board they'd already seen. The loneliest reader in the world followed the impostor into enemy territory, an unbreakable blade at his hip and a decade of secret knowledge in his head, walking toward a confrontation with someone who might know as much as he did. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja feared other readers more than any monster in the apocalypse. Now he was about to meet a whole cult of them. They called themselves the prophets, they worshipped a book of revelations, and they ruled a station through a boy king glued to his smartphone. But the truth about these prophets was stranger and sadder than Kim Dokja expected, because their so-called prophecies were nothing but the fading memories of readers who had given up on the story too soon. What I want to know right now are these two things, Dokja thought as Songguk led them deeper into Dongmyo. One is whether Songguk Lee has a file on me. And 2 is how many others there are who are like him. And also, if they have the same skills that I do. Because another reader was dangerous enough. A whole network of them could be catastrophic. This is unlikely, seeing how they used search attribute instead of character profile, he reasoned. Then it should be safe to say that they don't know anything about me. But what is it that he's reading? The impostor kept glancing at his phone, and Kim Dokja's unease deepened. A group chat, he realized, catching a glimpse. They have internet connections now. This is Dongmyo station where the loser is. That must be why they have the internet. Right, this way. Our leader is waiting for you inside. Hurry and get a move on. And there, at the heart of Dongmyo, Kim Dokja finally saw the king these people served. It's like they're running their own little kingdom here, he thought. Just stay put and watch guard while you wait for me here, he told his companions, and went in alone to meet the ruler of the prophets. The king of Dongmyo was a boy. A teenager, 17 years old, hunched over a smartphone, tapping and tapping at a screen with total absorption. And Kim Dokja knew exactly who he was. He activated his skill. Character profile. Name, Donghwan Han. Age, 17. Supporting constellation, shadow behind the curtain. Personal skill, comment manipulation. He was one of the 7 kings of the story. The boy who will soon become the basement-dwelling king of the shadows. Since the beginning of the scenarios, internet access over the entire area of Seoul was blocked, due to the streaming channel set up by the Dakibi. People outside of Seoul do not know of this. But this boy could reach the internet where no one else could, and he used it to rule from the shadows, manipulating information, comments, and rumors across the whole city. The boy who has already completed over half of the king's path, Dokja thought. They could use the internet because of Dongwon Han. Dongwon Han has activated the skill, comment manipulation. But something was wrong with the boy. He was not acting like a king. He was acting like a puppet, tapping mindlessly, barely aware of the world. But not like this, Dokja realized. He is currently under the influence of a powerful hypnosis. The true king of Dongmyo had been enthralled, his kingdom hijacked by someone else pulling the strings from behind the curtain. And that someone was the man who claimed to be a prophet. "We've brought a guest with us today," Songguk announced. "Say hello." And the leader of the prophets turned to face Kim Dokja. "You're the leader here," Dokja said. "Right? You saw right through me." "That's right. If you're the leader, why did you bring me here?" "So that we could talk in private. I don't know if you know, but I'm here under the influence of the block soundwave skill." And then he made his claim, the claim that defined the entire cult. "I am," he said, "a prophet. I'm one of them to be exact." A prophet. The word Kim Dokja had been dreading. The man laid out his gospel with the fervor of a true believer. "I know about your special power," he told Dokja, mistaking him for a fellow regressor or seer. "The miracle of regression. It is a special power that you and you alone possess in this world. You probably have regressed through many lives. You fought against horrible enemies and fought to save humanity against the otherworldly forces. You've been putting up a lonely fight all on your own. We have nothing but respect for your noble cause." Jungheet you might have cried if he heard this, Dokja thought dryly, because the prophet was reciting the hero's legend as if it were scripture, praising a struggle he had only ever read about. "But you might have realized this through your many regressions," the prophet continued. "Despite your miraculous abilities, you cannot manage alone against the oncoming adversity. But, Mr. Yu, things will be different this time. We, the prophets, were blessed to aid you through your current regression." And here he revealed the heart of it. "You may not believe it, but we have been receiving revelations about this day from 10 years ago." Revelations? Yes. There is a book of revelations that is handed down among us prophets. A record of your legendary exploits in this world. A book that tells of your past, your present, and your future. Wait, Dokja thought, his blood running cold, could they be talking about? And he knew. The Book of Revelations was 3 ways to survive the apocalypse. The novel. The very story Kim Dokja had read for 13 years. These prophets were readers. "Thanks to this Book of Revelations," the man boasted, "we have known that you would have Steel Blade Hien Seong Lee under your command. They may not be present, but you probably have delusional demon Namwon Kim and Naval General Jai Hai Lee with you." "Where is this Book of Revelations?" Dokja asked. "Unfortunately, the book has been damaged, so the original copy is lost. But do not worry. We each have memorized fragments of the book, and are making preparations so that you, Mr. Yu, can walk the righteous path. With us, you will be able to lead a new life that is different from your past regressions." Amazing, Dokja thought, and it was almost funny. What a story you've come up with. They had read a novel, forgotten most of it, and turned the scraps they remembered into a holy book. Songguk, was it? Dokja said, turning the conversation. Yes, Mr. Yu. Let's say that you have been given this revelation. What exactly do you plan to do with it? And the answer revealed the cult's ambition. They wanted to ride the hero's legend to power, to attach themselves to the destined king and rule through him. So he wants to take a free ride, Dokja understood. Interesting. And here Kim Dokja began to test them, to measure exactly how much these prophets really knew. Does that mean, the man faltered. But you got it all wrong. I'm sorry. How am I supposed to be allies with people I know nothing about? Who told you you could loiter around here? If you want to be my ally, shouldn't you first let me know who you really are? And who the hell are you to tell us what to do? The reader pressed, and the prophet's confidence cracked under the pressure. Kneel, Dokja commanded. Kneel. Recite to me the attributes you have. And that was the test. This is what he'll be thinking, the prophet worried. Jungyik has the eye of the sage skill. Why is he asking me to tell him my attributes? Is he testing me? My attribute is, the man began, sweating. That I'm a hypnotist. Just as I thought, Dokja noted. He is the one who used hypnosis on Ilhan Khan. So this prophet was the hypnotist who had enslaved the boy king and bound the enemies' mouths. And the ninth. I am the ninth renouncer. The ninth. And now the whole truth of the prophets snapped into focus, and it was pitiful. The ninth renouncer. Wait, Dokja thought. How many of them are there? Because a renouncer was not a seer at all. What do you mean when you say you're a renouncer? He asked, though he already suspected. That is the Book of Revelations, the man explained. The order in which we stopped reading the Revelations. You've stopped reading it. But why? Well, the Revelations were too difficult to decipher and much too profound for us to. What an excuse, Dokja thought. There it was. The prophets were readers who had quit. Each one had opened 3 ways to survive the apocalypse and, at some point, given up, dropped the story, closed the book. And the order in which they abandoned it was their entire hierarchy. The ninth renouncer was the ninth person to stop reading. Which meant he had read very little, and knew almost nothing of what was coming. So you were the ninth person to have stopped reading the Revelation, Dokja said. In that case, I don't think you'd be that helpful. Because a reader who quit early knew only the beginning of the story. Their prophecies would run dry the moment the plot moved past the chapters they'd read. These were not prophets. They were dropouts, clinging to half-remembered scraps of a novel they hadn't cared enough to finish, and using those scraps to play kingmaker in the apocalypse. Kim Dokja, the one reader who had finished all 3,149 episodes, stood among people who had given up after a handful, and the gap between them was an abyss. The prophet, sensing the deal slipping away, grew desperate, still tapping at his phone even now. Why do you keep playing with your phone? Dokja demanded. I'm sorry, the man stammered, I'm addicted to smartphones. Even a self-proclaimed prophet couldn't put down his screen. And when Kim Dokja's patience with these frauds finally ran out, when he refused to kneel to a cult built on a book they'd abandoned, the peace shattered. Thud. A sub-scenario triggered, or a fight broke out, the fragile negotiation collapsing into violence. What was that just now? Dokja thought. Is it a sub-scenario? Yes, you prick. Are you picking a fight with me when you're not even in the supporting cast? One of the enemies snarled at Hyen Seong. What the hell is this prick on about? The confrontation exploded. Crash. Hui won, Kim Dokja shouted as the battle erupted around them, the prophets and their enthralled king turning on the intruders. He had come to Dongmyo to learn about his enemy, and he had learned the most important thing of all: the people who could see the future were only ex-readers who had stopped too soon, and the one true reader who had read to the end stood alone against them. But a cornered cult was still dangerous, a boy king's shadow powers still loomed, and his own judge was now in the thick of the fight. The loneliest reader in the world faced a kingdom of failed readers, an unbreakable blade in his hand and the whole of the story in his head. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja had found a cult of failed readers, but one of them had read far enough to notice something terrifying: the story was changing. Characters who should exist were dead. People who should be dead were alive. And the only explanation was that another reader, one who had read even more than these prophets, was out there rewriting the apocalypse. To end the night, Kim Dokja would have to outread them all, and win the loyalty of a boy king enslaved in his own kingdom. The fight broke off soon enough thanks to their intervention. "My friend didn't know any better," Songguk pleaded, kneeling. "I'm sorry. If I was a little too late, he would have been killed by Hui-1. Hurry, say that you're sorry." The prophet who had impersonated Yu Junghyuk now groveled, terrified of the judge's blade. "Hui-1," Dokja said, "I told you to stay put." Because he did not want a bloodbath. He wanted information. And the prophets, for all their fraud, had exactly the information he needed. Then came a second prophet, and this one was different. "Mr. Yu, let me apologize for my transgression earlier," he said. "Let me introduce myself again. My name is Minseob Young." "So, what number are you?" Dokja asked, testing him. "I'm the 1089th renouncer." The 1089th. Where the hypnotist had stopped reading at episode 9, this man had read over 1,000 chapters before giving up. He knew far more of the future. "Are the other prophets also renouncers?" Dokja asked. "How many are there altogether?" "There's around 148 of us that we know of." 148, Dokja thought. "That's not as many as I expected." The first episode of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse was viewed around 148 times, and it dropped down to 129 around episode 50. So I assumed there would be at least 100 of them. The whole cult was just the old readership of the story, the people who had once opened the novel and drifted away, now stranded in the world they'd stopped reading about. But not all of them were mere renouncers. There is a group who call themselves the 12 Disciples, Minseob explained. They claim to have read the real prophecy, and that they have the power to change the world. They have read more of the prophecy than we have. The last disciple whose identity is unknown. So above the 100 failed readers sat 12 who had read deeper, 12 who treated their knowledge as a weapon to reshape the apocalypse. My guess is that there were many more prophets, Minseob added, but they might have died during the first scenario. They died even when they knew the future. Because knowing the story was not the same as surviving it. Reading about a monster did not make you strong enough to kill one. Most of the readers had perished in the first days, exactly as ordinary people did. And then Minseob revealed the thing that chilled Kim Dokja to the bone. This man had read far enough to know the shape of the story, and he had noticed that the shape was wrong. "From what I remember," he said, "you had the delusional demon Namwon Kim with you during your third regression. But I noticed that you had that woman with you instead of Namwon Kim. I thought she was Jai-Hai Lee, but she seemed older and to have a different name. The delusional demon, Namwon Kim. Could he be dead?" Dokja asked carefully. "Yes. Namwon Kim does not exist in the current regression. He was killed by one of you." "By one of you?" "By a reader. Someone who had read the story had murdered a character who was supposed to live, and in doing so had bent the entire narrative off its rails." "A prophet like us," Minseob wondered, unsettled even to speak it. "I didn't know if he were a prophet, but it seems that way now," Minseob admitted. "He knew the future just as you did. A lot more than you, actually. And there it was, the deepest fear confirmed. Another reader, out there in the apocalypse, one who had read even further than Kim Dokja feared, killing characters, rewriting fates, treating the story as clay. Not only did he kill the delusional demon, Minseob went on, he also completed all the hidden scenarios. My plan has been ruined thanks to him. This rival reader was not a passive observer. He was actively conquering the scenarios, erasing the people who stood in his way, remaking the world according to a story only he and a handful of others could see. He's even taken to impersonating me as of recently, Minseob said. I beat him to a pulp the last time I met him. But it's likely that he's still in the vicinity of Chungmuro. Chungmuro. Could it be, Dokja thought, his mind racing. The enemy was close, and he had a reader's cunning. Mr. Yu, I may know the man, Minseob said, meaning the reader who killed Namwon. Who killed the delusional demon. You know him? Yes. But first, I need to tell you something. Not all prophets are on the same side. That's why there have been changes in the third regression. The story Kim Dokja remembered kept diverging because rival readers were fighting each other across the board, each rewriting the world to suit their own ends. It was not just fate drifting. It was a war of readers, fought with foreknowledge as the weapon. As they spoke, Kim Dokja's own position strengthened. The new special ability of the Navy flag is ready for activation, the system announced. His conquests had climbed the color ladder again, red flag rising toward Navy, each captured station making his whole company stronger. After talking to Songguk Lee and Minseobyong, I was given Dong Demon and Dongmyo, making my flag turn Navy, he noted. Currently I own a total of 5 stations. 5 stations in a single day, halfway to the 10 the king's path demanded. His target now was Chongsin. It's too bad that I didn't get Chongsin Station, he thought. Being right in front of Dongmyo, I thought they had control over Chongsin. But I was wrong. Chongsin doesn't belong to the Dongmyo group. Chongsin is currently ruled by the Tyrant King. The Tyrant King. Minseob spoke the name with dread. One of the 7 kings of Seoul. He is as powerful as Jung Hee-kyu at the current point in the story. It was too early in the plot for him to be one of the 7 crowned kings, but they told me some prophets helped the Tyrant King's power grow by mistake. There it was again, the meddling of readers making the world worse. By trying to use their knowledge, some prophets had accidentally fed power to a monster, elevating a minor character into one of the 7 most dangerous rulers in the city, years ahead of schedule. Unlike us, Minseob said of the 12 disciples, they are looking to take control of this world using the revelation. Instead of helping you to save this world from ruin, they are a selfish bunch who only look after themselves. This is why we were asking for your help, Mr. Yu. Please, take us under your wings and put a stop to those heretics. And so the true purpose of the prophets came clear. Some of them, the renouncers, wanted to serve the hero of the story, to attach themselves to Yu Junghyuk's legend and help him win. The 12 disciples wanted to seize the world for themselves. And they were all fighting over a novel that Kim Dokja, standing in their midst, had actually finished. There's a meeting, Minseob told him. The Night of the Prophets. A gathering that does not include the 12 disciples will be held tomorrow night. I want you there, Mr. Yu. An invitation into the heart of the cult, a chance to learn everything, to find the rival reader, to measure the 12 disciples and the Tyrant King. Kim Dokja could not refuse it. But before he left Dongmyo, there was one more thing to do, and it was the kind of thing only Kim Dokja would do. The boy king, Donghwan Han, still sat enslaved by the hypnotist's block soundwave skill, tapping mindlessly at his phone, a puppet ruling a kingdom he could not feel. Kim Dokja walked up to him, reached out, and broke the hypnosis. Slide. Tap. Tap. The boy blinked, and the world came back into focus. Ugh, he groaned, dazed. Who are you? You know him? The true king of Dongmyo. One of the future 7 kings, the basement-dwelling king of the shadows, woke from his enthrallment to find a stranger standing over him. You ugh. Don't worry, Dokja said. Why you are, the boy stammered, reaching for his weapon, ready to defend the flag that meant his life. I'm not here to take your flag. You're a smart kid, Dokja told him. You should know better. If I wanted to hurt you, why would I free you from your hypnosis? The boy stared, confused, wary, and then something began to shift. Because Kim Dokja had not come to conquer him or enslave him or use him. The other prophets had chained the boy and stolen his kingdom. Kim Dokja had set him free and asked for nothing. Then, what, the boy managed. And the reader offered the one thing this lonely, powerful, manipulated child had never been offered by anyone in the apocalypse. Let's be friends, Kim Dokja said. Not a servant. Not a puppet. Not a tool. A friend. It was the same thing that had drawn a soldier, a judge, an office worker, and a swordswoman to his side, the simple, stubborn decency of a man who refused to treat people as pieces on a board. Kim Dokja had walked into a kingdom of failed readers and walked out with 5 stations, a warning about a rival reader who was rewriting the world, an invitation to the secret night of the prophets, and the beginnings of friendship with a boy who would one day be a king. Somewhere out there, another reader who knew even more than the prophets was erasing characters and reshaping fate. The 12 disciples plotted to seize the world. The tyrant king ruled Changsin with the strength of the hero himself. And the king's path still demanded 10 stations in 10 days. The loneliest reader in the world, who had finished the story no one else had, gathered his allies and set his sights on the night to come. His story, as always, was only just beginning.